want to welcome you all to the campus of Lipscomb University for our November edition of the Nashville Business Breakfast. We're grateful that you are with us this morning. For those of you who are at your first Nashville Business Breakfast, we hope that you will join us again in the future. We are glad you're all with us on this brisk November morning. It's good to see each of you here. One of the great things about this breakfast that I so enjoy is we're typically here to celebrate something that is truly special about Nashville, and I think Nashville certainly is a place that is part of our DNA, part of our fabric, is a spirit of entrepreneurship, and we're privileged to hear from someone this morning that is truly an exemplary entrepreneur, and not only that, Michael is someone who is strengthening and just building the spirit of entrepreneurship in this community. So we're looking forward to hearing from Michael Burcham in a few minutes. Speaking of exemplary entrepreneurs, though, we at Lipscomb University are certainly blessed to have been able for many, many years now to partner with the Nashville Business Journal in this program. And so as I have the privilege each time we get together to do so, I would ask you to welcome to the stage and introduce to you Kate Herman, the publisher of the Nashville Business Journal. Kate?
Good morning and welcome, and we too appreciate our partnership with Lipscomb University and are happy to be here this morning with you all. And partnerships, as you know, are very important in business, and we have other partners here today, longtime sponsors of this program. And I'd like to introduce you first to Chuck Denny, who's Regional President, Kentucky and Tennessee of PNC Bank. Chuck, will you please join me?
Wow. Well, that was very nice. Thank you. Unexpected. It's a real privilege to be here this morning, and life's always about decisions and the decisions we make. I'm always amazed that every 3 months or so that 400 of you all decide to gather and network at 6:45 in the morning. I don't think this to network and to help each other do business and to advance the ball down the field. I'm not sure this happens any place else in America other than Nashville, Tennessee. So congratulations on making those decisions, as you always consistently do. We are very privileged to be a partner with the NBJ and Lipscomb University, and I'm always, I don't know about you, wasn't it great to see that new Bridgestone Tower in the paper yesterday, the email blast we got from Kate, and the CEO just spoke to us, 2 times ago. So if you want to stay informed about Nashville, and I know if you're like me, I can't get informed enough about Nashville, you got to be involved with the NBJ. And whether it's advertising or with the sponsorships or just being a subscriber, if you're not, you need to be. And if you're not, give me a call, and I'll tell you why you need to be a subscriber, because it keeps you informed, it kind of ties us all together. If you're looking for talent, you don't need to look any further in Lipscomb University. We have several men and women that are involved in our business at a very senior level in the state of Tennessee and Kentucky that are graduates of Lipscomb University, and they're some of our finest leaders in our corporation. So congratulations again. I can't wait to hear Michael Burcham. We recently became an investor in one of his projects. We are so impressed with him, one of the great leaders in our country. Michael, thank you for being here today. We can't wait to hear you. And thanks to you again for making this all possible and showing up and participating as you do every time. Thanks.
Chuck, we appreciate you being so gracious. Thanks for being here. Thanks to PNC. And next, I'd like to introduce you to Dwayne Dillard. He's audit partner at Crowe Horwath. Dwayne, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Kate. Good morning and welcome to the Nashville Business Breakfast. Crowe Horwath is a top 10 public accounting consulting firm with offices coast to coast, and also a top 10 international firm through Crowe Horwath International. We provide audit, tax, and consulting services for clients in a variety of industries. As always, it's a pleasure to again sponsor this event. We look forward to this, every couple of months. Lipscomb University and Nashville Business Journal do a great job and always providing great speakers, no exception this month. So we're looking forward to, again, another great presentation today. Thanks again, and enjoy the event.
Appreciate both our sponsors, and now back to Bob Wood.
Thanks, Kate. We want you all to continue to enjoy your breakfast. We'll break for a few minutes and then continue the program in a little bit. But a couple of things I wanted to mention to you. If you look at the first page of the program, the printed program, for those of you who've been with us before, you know the drill. We'll hear from Michael, and then we'll have an opportunity for a Q&A session. So just notice at the bottom of the program, instructions for texting questions if you have any during the Q&A session that you would like to for our crew to hopefully get to. Maybe they'll have an opportunity to get to your questions. So I just wanted to point that out to you. One other group that I wanted to recognize and just ask you to recognize this morning who has joined us. On the campus of Lipscomb, we're also privileged to have Lipscomb Academy, a K through 12 program. And one of the special things that has begun recently at Lipscomb Academy is a program that we call Ignite. And this morning we have as our special guest a table of Lipscomb Academy students who are part of the Ignite business program. These students have expressed an interest in pursuing business careers in fields like accounting, marketing, entrepreneurship, and management. They are invited to the program, but have to apply and be chosen through application. These students, because of the connection with the university, get to experience interaction with university programs unlike any high school students around. And so it's truly a blessing to have that program at the Academy and be connected to the university. And I just wanted to acknowledge that group, ask them, table 15 here, could you guys stand and let this group acknowledge you? So this is the Ignite program from Lipscomb Academy. Thank you for being with us. Again, continue to enjoy your breakfast, and we'll resume the program shortly. Thank you. Again, I want to welcome you this morning. We'd like to get started with our program. Sorry to interrupt your fellowship at your tables, but we do want to begin our program so we can hear from our speaker. A couple of other things I wanted to mention to you, just items to kind of housekeeping things to make you aware of. In the inside of your program, you'll notice our next Nashville Business Breakfast is in March. This is our fourth and final event for 2014, and we look forward to kicking off 2015 by hearing from our Governor, Bill Haslam. So please, if you'll save the date, March 3rd, we'll be back here to hear from our Governor with our next Nashville Business Breakfast. One other thing that you may have noticed on your tables, there are Lipscomb University basketball schedules for Lipscomb's women's and men's basketball teams. We certainly invite each of you to come back and enjoy what goes on here in this arena as our teams are beginning their seasons and look forward to great seasons there. It's an entertaining evening. If you would like to join us for those games, we'd certainly love to see you here. One thing in particular that I'll mention to you is that there's this little thing that several of us from this end of the boulevard to the other affectionately refer to as the Battle of the Boulevard. That happens actually the first edition of that for this season is this coming Monday night. So we especially invite you to join us for that event. There's still a few tickets left for that evening here as Lipscomb plays Belmont on this coming Monday evening. On the back of the schedules, you'll notice there is a phone number where you can actually order tickets if you're interested in buying tickets either for Monday night or for future games. But before you make that phone call, and I know several of you are reaching for your phones right now to do that, I do want you to know that the University Athletic Department has put under one chair at each and every table an envelope. It's taped to the chair, and it has 4 tickets to this evening or this Monday's game between Belmont and Lipscomb. So if you are the lucky person to be sitting on an envelope, those tickets are yours, and we'd love to see you here. One thing, if you are lucky enough to get those tickets and for some reason you're not able to use them, we'd love for you to share them with others at the table or just let us know. But glad and hope you can enjoy the game. If you weren't lucky enough to win those seats, again, 966-4373, make that phone call. So thank you again for being with us this morning. We do want to start our program in a way that we traditionally begin by offering a prayer of blessing and gratitude. And we've asked this morning to lead our invocation the clinical professor here at Lipscomb University, the clinical professor of management, and the executive director of the Center for Entrepreneurship here at Lipscomb. And I would ask you to join me in welcoming Joe Ivey to the stage. Joe?
Let's all pray together. Father God, we just thank you for hearing us, and we thank you for being present with us today. Father, we thank you for the spirit of creativity and innovation and adventure and perseverance that you have given us. And Father, we thank you for people in this room who act on those characteristics every day to try to make our city and our state and our country and even our world a better place. Father, we also thank you for the spirit of compassion and justice and concern that we have for others. And I thank you, Father, for those in this room who, through their entrepreneurial skills, are also trying in a very real, compassionate way to make the world a better place. Father, we recognize that all good gifts come from you, and we give you thanks. In Jesus' name, amen.
Well, it's my pleasure to welcome you all to this morning. Once again, we have gathered. Once again, we will be stimulated and leave here, I hope, a bit inspired and also with new information to make our business community that much better. We welcome you to Lipscomb University, as we always do, wanting to be a hospitable community in Nashville. And it's an important moment for you to be here. We had a major transition on Thursday night of last week, and that was the transition that took an initiative we started in 2010, an initiative to invest $125 million in the university by 2016, and we ended that early because we completed it. And so at the end of only 4 years as opposed to 6, we gathered 2,300 people at the Ryman Auditorium, celebrated that piece of our history, and they begin to unveil into the future what will be happening here. And I'm not going to do that for you this morning. You'll hear about it in other ways, but it is going to be exciting. A university that is looking differently at how to build a university. And let me give you just 2 or 3 examples of the kinds of things we're thinking of. And all that we do is so dependent upon those who claim us. We hope you will be engaged in ideas like this as well. We recognize, for instance, that we have 17,000 students in our school that come from a Latino or Hispanic background. We only have 76 teachers in our school district that share that same ethnic background. So we made the commitment to partner with the schools and triple that, producing 250 Hispanic teachers for our school district over the next 6 years, recognizing that huge population and the need for teachers to come from that same background. We also look at the unique thing about having an academy here. And this is one of the most amazing ideas that I haven't seen walked out quite yet, but we made the commitment to assure that every single student who graduates from Lipscomb Academy will have the opportunity to complete an entire year of college before their high school graduation. We've already put the schedules together. We have bright students. Once they finish those courses that are necessary for high school, there's no reason for them to sit there for another year. And we also announced a professional development corporation that we will establish to take the resources of a university that are enormous and infuse them into the community in a much more profound way. I was talking with one of our professors not long ago, and we have a counseling program, and those students have to do 75,000 hours of clinical counseling. I said, what do we do with that? And he said, well, we diffuse that in every agency that will take one. I said, what would happen if we took that 75,000 hours and we concentrated it on a neighborhood or a part of our community to make a more profound difference? And so through that new corporation, we will be doing things like that. I just share those because I want you to join us in the future. I want us to have you anticipate our future and want you to know that so much of that future is focused on this community and how we can be a good partner in it. We don't often have the opportunity to have the chairman of the board of the organization where our speaker comes from, but this morning we do have that. And so I would like you, if you would, to welcome John Ingram of the Ingram Publishing Group, who is the chairman of the organization represented by our speaker, and he's going to bring that introduction to us. John?
Thank you, Dr. Lowry, and it's great to be here this morning. It's not often that you get to introduce someone who's both a friend, a colleague, and a real asset to our city, but all of those things are certainly Michael Burcham. You know from your programs and whatnot that Michael's the founding president and CEO of the Nashville Entrepreneur Center. He's a very successful healthcare entrepreneur himself. He's started and run several businesses. He's a CEO coach. He's a professor over at Vanderbilt teaching healthcare innovation and entrepreneurship. He's a board member at the Nashville Technology Council. He serves on Nashville's International Business Council. He's a special venture partner at Galen Partner Investments, and that's all great. But Michael is also a guy of immense energy and talent, and I've had the great fortune to watch him over the last few years in my role at the Entrepreneur Center. But even more important than that, he's a guy who cares. And he's a guy who feels it's his responsibility for anyone who breaks through a certain ceiling to send the elevator back down and give others a helpful lift up. In the entrepreneurial world, they call it paying it forward. I call it the reason why Michael Burcham is here this morning to talk to all of us about creating the next new thing. Please join me in welcoming Michael to the podium. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm going to wait for them to cue our slides and we'll begin. If you'll indulge me. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveler, long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that, the passing there had really warned them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay, and leaves no step had trodden black. But I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I would ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, but that has made all the difference. I began my career here in Nashville at HCA. It was almost 30 years ago, and I will tell you, being a farm kid from Mississippi, Boonville, Mississippi, in fact, it was an incredibly challenging personal journey to get to that point. Jokingly, I tell my good friends that I was the one born with a plastic spoon in my mouth. I spent my formative years being raised by my grandmother. I vividly remember our first indoor toilet. I was the first in my family to go to college. It took 2 scholarships, an enlistment in the Army, and 2 part-time jobs to get there. And it was a dream that seemed almost impossible at the time. And I will tell you, my time at HCA was an incredibly wonderful experience. And through hard work, my career took off. From the outside looking in, it looked like I had it all. But you know, the soul doesn't take much stock in appearances. And I realized that I was being called to take my own road less traveled. I've come to think that every 5 to 10 years should be a period of introspection for all of us and thinking about what's happening next. So after almost 10 years at HCA, it seemed time to allow myself to dream. Now, I will tell you, leaving the security of what I had worked so hard to achieve was absolutely terrifying. But it was time to fly. So over the next few decades, I rode the roller coaster of entrepreneurship and learned some hard lessons. I've scaled and sold 3 businesses in the healthcare industry. Collectively, they've employed over 2,000 people and created revenues of almost $1 billion. But more importantly, I've had the great privilege to help thousands of men and women who are facing some of the most difficult healthcare challenges in their life and was able to make a difference. I followed a dream, but in doing so, I faced fears that I had kept buried deep inside for a very long time. The journey refined my skills as a leader. I've really suddenly discovered that I was good enough. I found that my most significant leadership skill was actually helping other people realize their own talent and dreams. And I had the opportunity to lead some incredible teams. So today in my 50s, I'm helping others connect to their own dreams and discover what it means to turn those dreams into something real. And honestly, at this point in my life, this period of time seems only fitting. I'm paying it forward with gratitude because so many people helped me along the way. For the past 5 years, my dream has been to build an entrepreneurial community here in our city that we all love so much. A city where both people and organizations have the opportunity to explore what's possible and to provide the resources and support they need to get on that journey. I've had the great privilege of being the conductor of this great orchestra at the EC. And so many wonderful people, including many of you in this room, have stepped up to be part of a dream that was so much bigger than me. And we've made our city an incredible national example of what's possible when people decide to do. At this stage in my life, I'll be honest with you, one of the things that keeps me going is realizing that I have limited time to contribute and to make a difference. And looking back over the past 30 years, I'm profoundly aware that my life has had so much meaning because I dared to dream. And dreaming, I was able to take risk and make something real. See, in order to create the next new thing, you have to dream. Now, if dreams and ideas were enough, we would all be creating innovations every day. We know that's not the case. The biggest barrier to creating the dreams is not taking the risk. And the older we get, the more difficult it seems to take these risks. See, I believe the root cause of this is our absolute fear of failure. And it's not just individuals who have this fear. I see it in companies, in school systems, in nonprofit organizations, and yet even in city governments. We all become more risk adverse as we age and start to have a little bit of success. And honestly, who of us in this room isn't a little bit afraid of failure anyway? But in a world that is quickly changing, I would submit to you the only strategy that is guaranteed to fail is when organizations pursue no dreams and take no risks. Something for you to ponder. Of the companies listed in the Fortune 500 in 1955, 87% have gone out of existence. According to Forbes, the average lifespan of a successful S&P 500 company was 67 years in the 20s. Today, it's less than 15. All these companies actually began as somebody's dream. An idea, a startup. And there were struggles, and probably a failure or two along the way if someone is really honest with you. See, refining a business model, building a culture, and creating a team isn't easy, and sometimes it's a process of trial and error. But as they grew, innovative pathways were replaced with rigid policies and procedures that rewarded only execution, and within a decade, the vision of the founder gets lost in a sea of bureaucracy. Now, to make a point of this, I'd like us to look at two fantasy companies. We're going to start with Company A, and let's call them Supercorp. Sound like you? Supercorp absolutely desires to be innovative. The CEO says it at almost every meeting. It's even written about in the annual report, so it must be true. Supercorp has an innovation department with a team of people ready to go be creative. They're so confident in their strategy, the Supercorp has even set up an investment fund to invest in the ideas of its people. But if you look closely, great ideas litter the floors of the corporate headquarters. The company is a graveyard of dreams that were killed off before they could breathe their first breath. And in spite of the CEO's wishes and all the money being spent, Supercorp remains mired in a swamp of inertia, bureaucracy, and misaligned incentives that afflict so much of what we see in corporations. New concepts slowly suffer an agonizing death by the innovation committee, and irrational questions fill the air for any new idea. What are these irrational questions? Well, how does this fit our business model? What's the idea here, and does it suit our brand? Where's the return on investment? Would you guys in the back advance that for me, please? You see, Supercorp, its values and everything about it has huge advantages for the status quo, but it makes it impossible to be the next new thing. And somewhere in its dim past, it was a startup refining a business model, but now its employees take the model for granted. They focus on their to-do list, and every morning driving to work, they're thinking already in their head, what have I got to get done today? And there's scarcely anything innovative on the list. Now let's consider Company B. We'll call them the Creative Minds. This is probably more like you. Creative Minds also desires to be innovative, but recognizes key elements in creating the next new thing lie in many of the startup and entrepreneurial tools used over the globe today. They have created a pathway for innovation in the organization that protects and nurtures the idea. I'm sorry for the AV problems, folks. Would you advance that for me, please? In this company, something interesting, a suggestion box will never do. Again, please. Its leaders are serious about engaging and fostering innovation. And in doing so, they embrace the full spectrum of all the tools that they're going to need. And finally, Creative Minds is about building and recognizing rewards. Rewards that really let people know innovation matters. You see, so many times as leaders, what happens is that we fail to establish formal methods of rewarding those who are innovative. And as a result, we will lose significant value of our company as those who are innovative go elsewhere to do their next thing. The last thing I'd point to you about is Creative Minds is also weaving in storytelling. You see, corporate storytelling is how we show value. Numerous studies over the years have proven that our brains are far more engaged by storytelling than cold, hard facts. As a matter of fact, psychological research has shown that cold data is often what paralyzes us into inaction rather than action. Perhaps you've heard the term. We call it analysis paralysis. But the brilliant and very entrepreneurial Mother Teresa was a pioneer in taking the road less traveled. She once said, "If I look at the masses, I will never act. But if I look at the one, I will." So if innovation and entrepreneurial behavior are not part of your company's travel stories, they probably don't exist. Because no matter what slogan you hang in the break room, we make it clear what's important by the stories we tell. Now let's turn our attention to some of the life-giving stories of the people who make this happen. If you are leading a team at an organization, here are 3 ideas to help you rekindle and recapture the magic of the founder of your organization. First, when you find yourself asking that question, think about the pathway for innovation in your organization. And if you can't find a pathway, get busy putting one together. Second, define how your organization will measure innovation and reward entrepreneurial thinking. How will you recognize those who dare to dream? And then finally, ask your managers to share their most memorable and inspiring stories of the entrepreneurial journey of your own company. Document them. Use them when you onboard, when you tell the stories, and how you communicate the value of your business. Now, for those of you that are the dreamers in the room and the innovators, you are the round pegs, as you know, in square holes, or sometimes the square peg in the round hole. Either way, most days you feel like you're living in a Dilbert cartoon. Always remember that this next new thing is somewhere in your peripheral vision. It's not obvious to everyone. You're going to seem crazy because you really feel the change of your market faster than you see it. You see a better way to solve an old problem. You can see the what's next if you're listening to a what-if voice coming out of your heart. But for that to become real, we must do something with the idea. And we can't allow our fear of failure to keep us from walking this road less traveled. When you find yourself in that place, here are 3 steps to help you reduce the risk of failure that I found worked incredibly well for me in my career. First, look for the small signs that will validate your gut instinct. They won't be obvious. You'll pick them by scanning periodicals and listening to conversations. You'll probably won't see them in a PowerPoint at a conference, but they're there. Next, think about the skills that you're going to need from within the organization, raw human talent and technology and other assets that you could repurpose for this new idea. And third, and most importantly, choose your team wisely. Pick passion and perseverance over the pedigree, because walking the road less traveled is a very gutsy move. I've met so many people and individuals and companies who fear failure. And as a result, they tend to play it safe because what they really wanted seemed impossibly out of reach and ridiculous to execute, so they settled for something safe. But you know, I've also seen that spark in the eye that is returned from our youth when people come to life making contributions in their organizations, in their communities, in their families that they never imagined, all because they dare to dream. See, you and I can just as easily fail at doing what we don't want. So we might as well take a chance on doing what we love and what we're called to do individually and collectively. And when we do, we find ourselves on the road that makes a difference, the road less traveled, the one that takes us to places that we never even thought were possible. Thank you.
Everyone that the instructions on texting a question to Kate and me are at the bottom of the agenda, so please feel free to do that. We'll use as many of the questions as we can. Michael, I doubt if there are very many people here this morning who haven't followed the development of the Entrepreneur Center pretty closely, but just in case there might be someone, tell us a little bit about what it is, where is it, how does one get involved with it, and most importantly, tell us about the vision that you and John have for what's next for the Entrepreneur Center.
Absolutely, thank you. So we're located at 41 Peabody. We call them the old trolley barns at Rutledge Hill. What we do is very simply, every day, men and women with ideas walk in the door for an opportunity to be heard. And after a screening, we help them find the resources they may need. Some are actually ready to move in and start working on a company. Some need mentoring and coaching. Some need some education on basic tools. And some need to network with other people like them just to figure out, is this what I need to do? And that's really the genesis of our team's work there every day, is to make that happen. Up to this point, we've been really busy serving Middle Tennessee and Tennessee. We've had over 2,500 ideas come through the door. We've launched over 100 companies that have raised almost $70 million. So the what's next is a big idea, and that is not only to have Nashville recognized nationally, but internationally. And we've begun the work to break our mentoring and education programs go online so they can be used throughout the world.
Great. Can you tell us a little bit about what the biggest need is for Nashville's entrepreneurial community to keep growing? Obviously, it's been on this fast track now with the start of the center. So how do we keep that going? What does Nashville need to be able to do that?
Well, I think there are two basic ingredients, maybe three, that are there. First and foremost, let's continue to be a city that embraces all the crazies, because those are the entrepreneurs. And when we allow ourselves to continue to be a very progressive community in the middle of what I sometimes call a desert of the South, really smart people show up here. That's the future. It's the knowledge economy, and we don't ever want to let that go. But in a more practical sense, I think the thing that I would focus on is our capital continuum, meaning the money is available to companies. Sometimes it looks a little bit like Swiss cheese. We have money at this phase, but not the next phase, and then a later phase. And there are many of us working on providing ways to think about how capital will be available, that as a company grows, additional opportunities are there for additional funding to grow and be relevant.
We are in the early stages of electing a new mayor. Nashville is at an incredible moment in its history. But I wonder if you could look through your lenses as the person who thinks about what's next and talk about what's next for Nashville. What would your vision be if you were running for mayor, Michael? And by the way, we'd be delighted to encourage you to do that.
You know, I've thought a lot about that sort of job, and I think I would enjoy doing the job. I don't think I'd enjoy the political process very much, turning. In my thinking about our city, I would say the things that we all have to be mindful of is that we can't settle for where we are. We're either going to move forward or we're going to move back. And we've achieved some wonderful things through some great leaders. But if we dare sit here for a decade or 2 election cycles and think we've got it made, we so don't have it made. So the real challenges are those around how we're going to do public transportation when 1 million more people show up here. That's a really big issue. How are we going to offer educational opportunities that aren't the 50-year-old style? Because different people learn different ways, and we're attracting people from many cultures all over the globe. Different styles of learning have to be embraced in our city. And as a city grows, I think one of the really important parts is there are communities, neighborhoods that are almost little self-contained ecosystems. We're already seeing that with the startup community, where little technology companies love to aggregate in this part of town, and the healthcare companies are over around Marathon Village, and other kinds are at 12th Avenue South. And these little communities and neighborhoods make a larger city livable and workable and fun. Because at the end of the day, we as humans desire that so much. And if I were the mayor, those would be my top 3 things to work on.
Good answer.
Ken, you talked in your when you were talking previously about stories, can you give us like one or two stories that you were most excited about that showed you, okay, what I'm doing, this is why I set out to do this? Can you give us an example?
I can. I'm going to give you two most recent stories. I could give you stories over the years, but two come to mind. When I had Paradigm Health, our chief nursing officer, Jean Clement, brought me a box, and it had cards and letters from families. Now, we helped people that were facing life-threatening diseases, and these were from surviving spouses thanking us for our work. And she said she'd been collecting these in her office, and as I read through those stories and got to hear how our work affected people, it totally changed me as a CEO of that company. And that's probably the most profound change as a leader I've had. Up to that, it was all about quarterly earnings and margin, and I can be as dogmatic as anyone about the earnings. Ask anyone that works with me. But boy, it gave me a softer edge to realize that a company without a purpose doesn't mean much in the long run. I would say the second story was from a scruffy young boy who showed up at the EC when we first opened on Broadway as a sophomore from Procon. And this was a kid who had lived in foster care for 7-8 years here in town. And his clothes that he had were basically fit in a green garbage bag. And he dreamed of an opportunity to have a different environment to hang out in, and met with people. And several of my team who are here, we just adopted him. And over that time, watching this very young man who all the odds were stacked against morph into an A student with a full scholarship to the University of Tennessee and having his own company, restored in me a sense that, you know, the American dream really should be for everyone, but many people can't find the door. And our job is to help them illuminate the path and open the door of opportunity.
Michael, Ann and I had dinner a week or so ago with a friend of ours who's in the healthcare industry, and he was telling us that our 5-month-old grandchild probably has a life expectancy well into the 90s, if not maybe in excess of 100. And that got me thinking about all of us baby boomers. I'll exclude you from that, but I'm in that group. I wonder if you're serving very many over 65 entrepreneurs, and I wonder what your thoughts are about how we might incentivize a whole generation of older Americans to start businesses and to be productive longer and create jobs in the process.
So let me clarify who we serve as an age demographic. Our median point is early 40s. We have a lot of young people hanging out, but we also have a lot of older individuals, many of which who have actually played it safe their whole career and are now at a point where the kids are grown and they actually have a little bit of a retirement, that they're going back and reliving their dreams again. And it's an incredibly rewarding group to work with because I think their work ethic is just frighteningly good. I think that for the aging Americans out there, you know, and I am a baby boomer too, I'm in by a year or so, but I will tell you my thought for all of us is that there is no depending on anyone else for our future in retirement. And I think for future generations, including your grandson, we have to be very resourceful and thoughtful at how skills and talent, particularly entrepreneurial skills and talents, provide income opportunities for individuals. Because I see so many young people doing tours of duty in companies rather than building careers. And I think as a senior citizen, having a tour of duty as an advisor or a consultant can be a very wonderful thing to do at late in life.
Michael, when you talk to investors and business folk that are outside of Nashville, what do they say the strengths and weaknesses are of Nashville?
I think the outside business visitor, when they first show up, are just stunned. We all have teeth and shoes, and that sometimes scares them a little bit because it's just not the persona they expected. But after they drive around a little bit and get to know the city, something else starts to happen. They actually get to see a city that the creative energy is just fusing us all together in ways other cities envy. I credit the music industry and the songwriters and the artists and the entrepreneurs here, but they really are the glue or the mortar that connect us all in some unique ways. I bet every one of you knows somebody trying to make it in the music business. And I bet you know somebody trying to make it in healthcare. And I bet you know somebody tinkering with technology. That's the future of our country, and we have them all here. So the first thing they tell me is, wow, this city has a lot of creative people who are talking to each other. The second is that they see us as a city of doers, not people who just talk about it, but do it. And they spend a day with us at the center, and they're like, do people do this here every day? Because it's not commonplace in many markets. And I think the third is they see city leaders and business leaders from all categories actually on the same page talking about the future we want to build together. And that's one of the most powerful things is our leaders as a city are actually starting to tell the same story. And that makes us a much more powerful place to be.
Weaknesses? I'm going to put you on the spot.
That's
how we get better.
Yes, we have a few. Weaknesses are these. We will always be short of talented people who understand technology deeply. Front-end, back-end coders and programmers and all that. We have to be very resourceful and thoughtful about how we provide them an opportunity to show up and be part of this city. Secondly is affordable housing, if it's not already, will be a weakness. I don't think we can build housing fast enough to accommodate the needs we're going to have. The third is that we need to be far more integrated with our colleges and universities, with our ecosystem. We have 16, I believe, colleges and universities here. About a third of those students stay, 2/3 go elsewhere. So we are training this incredible workforce. I'd like them to have reason to be here. And if you talk to them, they actually love the city, but the job happened to be somewhere else. And I think as a business community, we have to get very serious about how we're going to embrace and engage them, even as they arrive as freshmen and sophomores, not just senior interviews, if we really want to be a vibrant place going forward.
Well, speaking of healthcare, Caroline Young is here, who heads the Healthcare Council. We've got 300 healthcare companies here in Nashville. You're a healthcare executive by virtue of your experience. Certainly, this is an industry that faces its challenges as we look down the road. What company would you start if you could start another healthcare company? And what do you see for the future of the industry here in Nashville?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I will start another healthcare company. It's not an if. So you can write that down.
I knew that, but I wanted you to tell us what you're going to do.
I will tell you, I have dealt with 3 significant people in my life over the last 5 years who've died an agonizing death of cancer. And I'm dealing with that now too. And I really believe there's a way to fuse the science and big data and allow people the right to die with dignity. And I think it has to be done in a very special, unique way. This isn't about how do we make sure people have hospice. This is much more about at the point of diagnosis, actually understanding your options and what's an experimental drug or not, and what's likely to happen with my body if I do this or not. You know, I read the story of the young lady in Oregon who chose to end her own life on her own terms. And I will tell you, here in the Buckle the Bible Belt, that's about the most controversial thing a human could do. But I do think, given the growth of our population and where we're progressing as a society, the opportunity to die with dignity is going to be extremely important. And my next company will have something significant to do with that space.
You talked a little bit about taking risks, not being afraid, moving forward. So once an entrepreneur gets past that point and they've come to you,
you never get past that point.
Well, you never get past that point.
Every day is terrifying.
So when they come to you, doesn't go away. What are the 3 biggest mistakes you see them make?
You know, thank you. That was an easy, wonderful question. I tell you, coaching entrepreneurial startups is like Forrest Gump's box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. And sometimes there's a nut inside.
We're supposed to embrace those, right?
Embrace the crazies, yes. I would say the most number one problem is that people obsess over the shiny object. They polish it. Look how this works, and isn't this great? And it's great to invent, but inventing is not building a business. Building a business is a very different kind of hard work. Yes, we need inventors, but polishing your shiny object won't suddenly cause people to show up and buy it. And so I would say the number one mistake is obsessing over the creation without thinking about how does this go to market and become something. I would say the second thing is that people don't always choose their first teams well. They basically pick what they can afford and who will show up and work with them. And they find out, for the most part, they have to trade out the team pretty quickly with some talent. It is worth spending the time to work your Rolodex and find people with a common passion, not someone who happens to have 20 extra hours a week to help you. Because starting a business is an incredibly lonely journey if you've ever done it. It's very taxing on the person and their families. And if your team doesn't have passion together, you as a leader have to create passion for everyone, and that's exhausting. So I'd say the second common mistake is the team. The third is assuming that our first image of how the business works is the right. You need some engineering tools, sort of flow charting tools, to think about how many ways could I lay this out and what's going to be the least disruptive to customers and the most disruptive to our competitors, and that takes some thought. Those are the three most common errors.
Now, we've got two incredibly innovative leaders at this head table, in John Ingram, who has faced some really significant challenges in the evolution of the book business, and Randy Lowry, who is facing challenges in the evolution of the education industry. So you're now hired as a consultant to each of them. What advice would you give John as he looks at what's next for the book business, and what advice would you give us here at Lipscomb as you look at what's next in the education business?
Okay, tall order. John, here we go. I'll start with you, buddy, okay? Well, first of all, I think John was brilliant to quit making buggy whips and decided that he probably should get into the digital age. And I don't know if all of you appreciate this, but he went very much against the grain of popular thought at the time to move digital. Now, it doesn't mean books are yet obsolete. If you're like me, there's nothing better on a weekend night to sit by your fireplace with a book. And I think I'll always love that. I'm not sure my grandchildren will, but I certainly will. I think for John and Ingram, the question is, how do people choose to consume? And I think the word book and video and audio are going to merge over time into a concept called digital media, where we consume parts of words and parts of audio and parts of video and parts of stories. And the way we consume engages all the senses, not just one of the senses. And that would be my advice to John, is don't forget that the digital age will cause the fusion of many kinds of media to what we call the book today. I don't think for Randy that's that different, except that when you think of a learning environment, the speed at which we have to learn and the readiness employers expect for new graduates is only going to continue to escalate. I see a future where immersion learning is part of everything we do at higher ed. Not only do you have to learn the how, you have to demonstrate competency in the do. And if you can't demonstrate competency, you probably didn't learn the how. And I think having opportunities for young men and women to demonstrate some level of competency as they enter the workforce is a giant differentiator. I see it with the juniors and seniors of local colleges who spend time with us at the EC. They typically are the first to get jobs because they have something the employer wants, and it's not just the degree. The degree is important. It's the hunting license, but you need to show you have skill, and that's what I would hope for higher ed in the future.
I know there's probably a large amount of people in the audience who are already engaged with the Entrepreneur Center, but if they aren't, what help do you need? What should we be doing to be able to keep this going and make your job easier?
So if I were to quantify for you what each of you can do, here it is. First is Our city is filled with people with great ideas. I would bet for most of you, your children have some ideas too. Give them the opportunity to dream about those. Give your neighbor a chance to dream about them. And if you don't have the time to sit and hear them out, send them to us. We will take the time to hear them out, because while there are some nuts in the middle, there's a lot of good stuff too. And we can introduce them and connect them to other people with ideas, and one person becomes 2, becomes 5, and before you know it, you have a business. So the first and most important thing you can do is be aware. Use your sixth sense. Listen out of your peripheral vision for the next new thing. And if you're not ready to go do it, help someone else think about it. The second thing you could do is be a coach or mentor. We have over 300 of you as business leaders mentoring today. And we're mentoring to youth in our new high school program. We're mentoring into prisons for those through Linda's partnership with us are getting a second chance. We're mentoring to startup ideas. We're actually helping corporations infuse entrepreneurial mindset into how they do things. Schneider Electric gave us the opportunity to train almost 50 of their leaders, because these are very smart technical people that they want to make sure understand how to think entrepreneurially about market opportunities. So become a coach and become a mentor. Help others know what you know. It only takes a few hours a month, and it's an enormous gift you give to someone else and to your city, because when you pay it forward and help someone else, what you're doing is saying, I honor your idea. And there's no more powerful way to restore dignity to someone who feels they've lost it than to honor their idea and help them.
Well, the clock is racing toward our end, so we probably have time for maybe just a couple of more questions. I'll ask one, and then Kate will ask the last one. I've been privileged to be on your board at the EC from the very beginning, and I've just been amazed at how brilliantly you manage a board.
Thank you.
And I wonder if you have any advice for the leaders in the audience who perhaps interact with boards as leaders. How would you advise us to manage our boards more effectively?
Okay, this is going to be fun. Now, I will be honest, I look a young 54, right? And that's because all this is scar tissue. So I'm going to share with you some really hard lessons learned. The first is you have to, whether it's your board or anyone else, work through in your head, what is it I want them to think? What is it I want them to feel? And when they leave, what do I want them to do? And build your meeting around that, because people have to engage with their brain, but also engage with their heart before they do anything. Never forget that. The second is you need to remember that boards of directors fly at 2 levels, 20,000 feet and in your underwear. Don't invite them in your underwear. It's not very comfortable. Now, what I mean by that is look at the appropriate level of information. It is your job leading the company to solve the problems. It is your job to come up with the solutions. It is your job to think of the alternatives. Your board is there as a council and a sounding board, but they're not there to do your job as the leader. Come prepared for the discussion at 20,000 feet. When you ask, what do you think I should do? What they're thinking is, my God, don't you know? We're paying you to run this place. So let that sink in a minute. The most dysfunctional boards I've ever observed or had the unfortunate situation to be a part of is when a leader in the most honest, thoughtful way is inviting people for input when it's not the appropriate input to be given. So think about the level of individuals at the boards. Keep the conversation the appropriate level. If a board member wants to dive into detail, there's ample opportunity between board meetings to do that through committee structures and so on. But the board has to cover a lot of material in an hour and a half if you're only meeting once a quarter. You're laying out 90 to 180 days worth of material in a very short period of time. You need to get everything covered, and to do so, it's got to be at the appropriate level with the appropriate amount of research and work done in advance of the meeting.
Great answer.
Okay, quick, fun last question.
All right.
ABC's Shark Tank, reality or fiction?
Total fiction.
That's a great question.
Now, I enjoy the show. Let me just be quite honest with you. There's nothing more entertaining than watching people trying to pretend to be such mean investors. But in real life, that's not what angel investing is all about. Otherwise, we would call it devil investing. Okay? The whole term angel investing comes from the fact that we're investing in your idea with our capital, but we're equally investing our time. We want you to succeed. This isn't about how much of your skin I can get by offering you some small amount of money for a large amount of your company. Because if I take away your incentive to work hard, what's the point? It's really about sharing knowledge and opportunity to grow something. And if we grow the whole pie bigger, we all get to share in it. So I enjoy it for its fictional qualities, but honestly, angel investing is much more about investing money and time. And that time is in the form of expertise, helping someone. As John said, it's about sending the elevator down for someone else. Because every one of us sitting here today are incredibly fortunate people. There is someone you know waiting for you to push the button and give them their chance. And gosh, I hope you do it.
Would you join me in thanking Michael? Great job.
Well, good morning to you all. Michael, I think we speak for everyone, and I hope you know how much Nashville appreciates you and all that you bring to our community, for the way in which you do send the elevator down and lift those people up and do so in a way that brings all of us benefit in terms of the economy that's being grown here. So thank you very much. Would you join me in thanking Michael again? If you head down to Spark in Cool Springs, you'll see on the wall in there as you walk in, there's a quote from John F. Kennedy that says, "If not us, who? If not now, when?" And perhaps it's appropriate as we as a business community and business leaders in Nashville, Tennessee, think about growing an entrepreneurial ecosystem that will propel us into the future, to recognize that that ecosystem largely depends on us to take action now. As we think about how it is that we grow this and how we mature it, one of the things that I hope you'll recognize with me is this. And that is that there is a myth out there, and Michael has dispelled this in a powerful way this morning. It's called in the entrepreneurial community the myth of the garage. The idea of thinking that great companies are born out of garages where there's people that are just inventing things, and out of that comes the new company that will change the world. But the reality is this. You see it in Michael Burcham. You see it in so many of you, and that is that great companies are born out of great companies. Great companies are born out of very experienced business leaders who, as Michael has taught us, have a dream to do it better and to do it more effectively. Nashville certainly knows this phenomenon. Caroline can show you the Nashville family tree and the 300 healthcare companies that are on that poster. It's a reflection of companies being born out of companies. And so, as we leave here today, and as we think about how it is that we can invest in others, perhaps we too can think about our own dreams. And we can follow Michael's advice and be people who decide to do. We can be people who dare to dream. We can be people who don't fear failure, people who don't play it safe. That is the future of Nashville. And we're thrilled that you're a part of it and wish you well in your work. We will see you March 3rd for Governor Bill Haslam at the next Nashville Business Breakfast. Until then, take care.